So 3 months after a digital business will hit their first six-figure month, things usually start to decline and trend downwards. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times what they have is a lot of the good things going for them, such as products that their customers truly love, or rapidly growing email lists, sometimes big wholesale partnerships. And what you start to see is 6 months down the line from that is they're refunding customers a lot more often. Those partnerships come to an end, and the founder who was just about ready to let go from handling the day-to-day operations is now back into the thick of it, handling pretty much every aspect of their business nonstop. And again, this goes back to what we discussed in other videos, not because the product is failing and not because their market is disappearing, but what you're seeing is in this scenario is their operations couldn't scale with their success. So me myself personally, I've been working with small businesses, startups of all kind, from AI, fintech, traditional B2B SaaS, and working with them to get through this exact wall that we're going to go ahead and cover today. And what I found is that these breakdowns almost always trace back to three critical system failures, none of which show up in your analytics dashboards, or none you're going to see people talking about online, or really any other metrics that you have internally. So me personally, when I drop into a business that's kind of plateaued at, let's say, 30K, 50K, or even 100K per month, I don't usually start with theories. I don't ever start with theories. I start with evidence. And what I do is, for example, I will look at all the unfulfilled orders sitting in the queue. I will track how long customer questions are going unanswered, which is in their DMs or any other support channel they may have. And what I also do is I measure the gap between promised delivery times and actual fulfillment dates. And again, this is just following the breadcrumbs backwards until I find the root causes. And what I've discovered from doing this is it's not just another, scale your digital business formula by taking on these activities. It's rather trying to find patterns of where things are consistently breaking down and happening in a way that's very predictable. And today, what I really want to do is walk through exactly what I see when I look at a lot of these business operations and essentially how to break through it. So the first breakdown I really want to go through is process foundations as archaeological layers. So in thriving digital businesses, processes will evolve in clear layers, each building what came before it. And you can see that, order fulfillment started simple and then over time grew to a more sophisticated structure while maintaining its core structure. But in businesses heading for trouble, these layers start to fracture. And new processes don't really build on old ones here. They just replace them entirely. And the result is the knowledge doesn't really accumulate over time and just evaporates. So, what this looks like is, for example, let's say take a typical fulfillment process. When a digital business has 10 orders a day, their process might look like a simple checklist in Google Doc. At 50 orders a day, instead of expanding the checklist, they create an entirely different process and, say, a project management tool. And then at 100 plus orders a day, after significant growth, they create a third system for their e-commerce business. And what you'll see from this example is none of them are really connected to the others that came before it. None are really preserving the knowledge that came before it as well. And more critically here is nothing is documented as far as why certain steps even existed in the first place and what led to the growth of a whole new system as a whole. So when customers ask about their order status, customer service reps really don't really have any idea which version of fulfillment their package went through. The business owners or the founders can't really tell retail partners when bulk orders will ship, and this ultimately is going to just trickle down to inventory forecasts being incorrect. And the solution here isn't really that complicated, but it's rather just a bit more disciplined. The first thing you want to do is document the core workflow first before you decide on any tools. From there is assign a clear owner to maintain and evolve it. And the third thing you want to do is create a single source of truth that tools reference, not replace. So that's number one to start off with. Number two is metrics as an ecosystem, not a dashboard. This pillar reveals itself in how information flows through the business. Most digital founders or digital business owners kind of think they need better dashboards or analytics, when really what they need is just a healthier metrics ecosystem as a whole. And what you'll find is in a lot of these thriving businesses is metrics form a much more coherent narrative from acquisition to retention, and When your ads drive traffic, you can see exactly how many of those visitors convert to customers, what the average order value was, or how quickly they receive the products, and how likely they are to purchase again. On the flip side, in businesses that struggle, metrics kind of become these things that I like to call like isolated metric islands. For example, the social media manager will celebrate record engagement, while the fulfillment team drowns in back orders. Ad accounts show great ROAS, but the customer inbox is filled with messages like "Where's my order?" And what's happening here is no one's really connecting the dots. No one is asking our customers that we're acquiring, from our marketing campaigns, are they actually receiving their orders on time? Are the products that we're featuring, generating more support tickets, for example, than the ones that we're not? No one's really connecting those dots. And the gap isn't in tracking, more data, more metrics. It's connecting what you already know so you know how to track what you already have a whole lot better. And the solution here starts with one question, which is what single metric best predicts whether a customer will buy from you again? So for many businesses, it's days from order to delivery, and how quickly a customer receives their products. So when teams rally around improving this one metric, their entire ecosystem will realign. So what it realigns on is, let's say, marketing optimizes for regional targeting to reduce shipping times. Boom. Operations prioritizes inventory forecasting over new product launches. Boom. Support focuses on proactive shipping updates, not just issue resolution. And again, these aren't dashboard changes. This is a fundamental shift in how information is now guiding the decisions than it was before. And the last pillar here that I want to go over is scale as a daily practice, not a future state. And this one right here is probably the most subtle, but ultimately the most devastating for, up and coming digital businesses. And it's that belief that, scale is really something that you prepare for after you hit seven figures rather than something you practice every day when you're at five figures. Scale itself is not about handling more orders tomorrow, but it's more so about how you handle each tiny decision today. So if I were to audit a struggling e-commerce operation, creator business or retail business, what I'll find is owners spend up to 40% of their time, I would say, on decisions that should be a bit more automatic or automated. For example, when to reorder inventory, how to respond to customer questions that are a bit too common, and like what shipping options to use for which orders. All things that they're consistently doing manually on a day-to-day basis. And it's annoying to do. They're like attacks on every operation that compounds with growth, wasting your time and your energy. In typical growing digital businesses, I'll find 15 to 20 different manual decision points in their order fulfillment process. So founders will spend an average of 3 hours daily making decisions that could have been a bit more standardized. As the order volume triples, or let's just say even doubles, so does the decision load until everything else starts to break down. And the solution again here isn't really that complex. It's just as simple as deciding one time, documenting what you decided clearly, and enforcing it consistently, religiously, and holding yourself accountable in that regard. For example, one clear threshold for inventory reordering, templates for every single customer and interaction, a decision tree that eliminates repeated thinking, and the difference between a digital business that scales and those that implode isn't how they handle the biggest of decisions. It's how they eliminate these small ones. So the last thing I want to cover here is a case study. So if you go back to that digital business I brought up in the beginning, 3 months after hitting their breaking point, they rebuilt with a radically different approach. They first documented every fulfillment step in a single evolving system. They connected their metrics into a coherent story around delivery speed, and they ruthlessly standardize small decisions through templates and thresholds. These results transform their business. You see order processing time dropped from 3 days to 2. Customer service volume decreased by 25%. The founder went from working 80 hours on the business, or I should say in the business, to under 60 in improvement. And revenue grew from 100K to 200K monthly with the same team size. They didn't just recover from implementing these small changes, they thrived. And the secret wasn't, any fancy automations or hiring an expensive executive or even hiring at all. It was building operations that scaled with their ambitions. So a bit of a challenge for you all out there to assess where you are here and where you stand. What I want you to do is the following. Set a timer for 30 minutes. In those 30 minutes, list every decision that you made today about anything about your business. For example, orders, inventory, customer service, that specifically took less than 10 seconds. From that, identify which ones you made more than twice this month. And then from there, create a standard rule or template for each one. Now, of course, this all sounds very simple and, very much so like, I already know this is something that I already should be doing, but most people don't. So, and I don't want you to feel like this is busy work. This is supposed to be the foundation of operational scale, because great, business operations aren't built in, sweeping transformations. They're built in 30-minute blocks of intentional design over and over and over and over again. And what I do personally is I'll help traction stage digital businesses, local brick and mortar owners in the city of Atlanta, and just maybe small size to mid tier content creators kind of transform operations that have kind of stalled out at around, let's say, 25 to 100K a month into better systems that can handle 3 to 5x that volume without breaking. If you're ready to build those systems, check out some of the free materials I have in the description below. And then next time, we'll explore how these operational foundations directly impact customer experience, turning reliable systems into, remarkable loyalty and repeat purchases. So until next time, stay curious.